Keeps on trying to swindle me, but devil won't find me down at the crossroads. No.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to Right Side Up. My name is Mike Taglavia. My co-host this week is Dylan Maguire. How are you, Dylan?
Oh, not bad.
That's good. That's good. So it looks like spring is definitely on its way. It's kind of...
I would say it's launching slowly.
Yeah, launching slowly. Although I don't know how many gravel roads you've been driving on, but I know the few that I've had to deal with are certain sections of it are not looking that bad. And I hope it stays that way.
I mean, for our sugar producers out there, maple syrup producers out there are enjoying this prolonged mud season.
Yeah, my wife was emailing with a friend who's doing the sugaring, and so far they're having a good year. So that's a hopeful thing for spring anyway. I mean, anybody who's in the sugar business.
They'll have to, I believe, make up a little revenue with the reciprocal tariffs from Canada on maple sugaring equipment.
Right. So, Dylan, the first thing I wanted to talk about, there's an upcoming event at the Capitol this week. It's happening, what day? Wednesday, April 9th from 12 to 1 p.m. in the Cedar Creek Room up at the state capitol. It's parental rights in education, and there'll be some speakers there, but it's highlighting something that, I believe needs to be highlighted. We've got a lot of things going on and in this state and countrywide, but it needs to be stressed that parents they're the paramount when it comes to their kids' education. They're first. And what we have now with what's going on for the school reform here, education reform, this is a great time to be talking about this. So if you can, by all means, make it up there, go online. One of the key speakers is going to be Mary Holland from Children's Health Defense, I believe. No, that's a different one. I'm sorry. That will be another one. The next day, Children's Health Defense, Mary Holland will be at the Capitol the following day. So there's a lot going on up at the Capitol this week. But with the parents' rights in education one, that needs to be one of the main drivers in our education, and right now I don't believe it is. So
no, it's not. We've seen. Look at this was in the past 10-12 days of the executive order to essentially close the Department of Education federally.
Yes,
because you've spent the last 50 years of building out this giant administrative state.
Yes,
to support education. You have a public sector union, being the teachers union, that negotiates all this, but it's not. So the money in the budget that because they keep teacher salaries just high enough so they're not in the poorhouse, but low enough so it's still a prevalent campaign issue of we need to raise teacher salaries, but actually it's the administrative staff that's siphoning off.
Right. Well,
that don't produce anything.
Yeah, well, we need to back up just a little bit. Like you said, the idea of closing the Federal Department of Education is not a bad idea, primarily because most of the money in the Federal Department of Education got siphoned off for administration. It didn't go to the states. It did not go to education. And that's the part that not a lot of people are hearing. They only hear the hysteria over, the Federal Department of Education has been closed or shut down. That doesn't mean the money is not going to come to the states. It'll probably go to the states in the form of block grants so that the states can decide how to spend the education dollars. That's one of the reasons why I brought up the Parents' Rights in Education event on, excuse me a minute.
It's Wednesday, I believe you said.
Wednesday, April 9th. 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. So because parents need to have a lot of say in what their kids are taught, and to be able to tell the administration, the school board, what they don't want their kids to be taught and told and counseled to do. That's a big deal. You know, one of the things that's come up, and it keeps getting more and more press time, is the idea of cell phone free schools,
which is actually probably the best. I was in high school when the smartphone came about.
Yep.
So you have data from then until now.
Yeah.
Where you see an increase in a lot of these trends that have happened in the last 13, 14 years.
Yeah.
Are because of how much access people have to.
Yeah, and negative trends, the anxiety, the depression among students not really paying attention in class. I attended a short video that was shown in the State House during a lunch hour, and one of the things, or a couple of things that came out, was that students started actually communicating with each other, talking amongst each other. Both in class when it was necessary to speak, they were paying attention better, and in times when they maybe lunch time or any of the other activities where they should be interacting socially without using their smartphone. And there are a number of different schools that have varying policies, but that was one of the reasons for this video, because it was, I believe, 2 or 3 school administrators that they were comparing describing their policies, how it was. This is not an expensive policy. We're talking about, I can't remember, but one policy to institute, I think, was less than a couple $100. I think the most expensive one was like $700 or $1,500. You know, chump change compared to some of these school budgets. So that's, here we go again. Let the parents decide. And my hope is that we have more and more parental interaction with school boards, and actually we get people on school boards who are open to these ideas.
I think you're seeing that. I think you're seeing, especially the younger generation, start to take more initiative to enter these lower levels of
I hope so.
Government.
I hope so.
And I think that in Vermont, especially in the last 5 years, you've seen the explosion in homeschooling.
Well, that's the other thing, parental rights and education. When we have H89, for me to be tooting my own horn, it's one of those bills that I reintroduced. It's under a new bill number, but that's one of the things. With school choice, you get more parental input. So there are a lot of working parts here, ladies and gentlemen, and the more participation, public participation we have, the better off our students are going to be, because mom and dad are part of the public participation, and that's what's going to get this stuff turned around.
And geographically, it's challenging in Vermont, especially where you don't have this same population density where you have schools on every
right. And that's one of the things that's a big concern. I hear that all the time, and it's been discussed. I sat in on Senate Education last Friday, a week ago. 2 Fridays ago. And that was one of the things that came up. And Zoe Saunders, the Secretary of Education, was testifying before Senate Education, and she did bring up the idea that they've taken that into consideration, and it didn't sound like a disclaimer here. There are a lot of moving parts, so I'm not sure exactly how it's going to flesh out, but they're paying attention to the idea that the younger kids, they do not want to have on the bus for any extended period of time, if at all possible. Yeah. So that is a consideration, and one of the other consideration is possibly not even touching some of these smaller schools because of that consideration. And they also want to keep the younger grades class sizes smaller, which is probably a good idea. But Senate Education, unfortunately, is doing more than House Education, because leadership in the House seems to want to stall this, ladies and gentlemen. And, one of the good things about leadership stalling what's going on in the legislature right now is we are not hurting you in the public, the Vermont public, citizens, taxpayers that much because we've been moving so slow. We haven't taken more of your tax dollars and we haven't taken more of your freedom. The downside is we haven't worked on some of the things that we need to be working on, like public safety, like education funding, like housing. Affordability. We're not working on these, and we should. It's really sad.
And I'll stand by my theory of Vermont's got 5 years to make significant changes to get us onto a different track, or it's going to be excruciatingly painful for the average Vermonter.
Well, yeah, you're right. And we're going to hear more of, I'm John Q. Public. Hi, how are you? And my kids can't afford to live here. Or we were talking about it yesterday. Or when I finally retire, I already know that my home is going for sale and I'm going to have to leave because with my retirement income, I won't be able to stay here. That's so sad to hear. And I hope we can stop that. I really do. So, but parental rights and education needs to be hammered in this whole education conversation. Now that we're talking about education reform, this is the time. This is the time to have a seat at the table. So if you're thinking about it, if you're a parent or grandparent and you want to make sure that your kids and grandkids, get a better education than they're getting right now, now's the time to speak up. Now's the time to inform yourself and find a way to have a seat at the table because this is definitely the time to be doing that. So I don't know if there was anything else you wanted to try to cover this segment. But I just
we had on part of that affordability topic. Yeah. We had up in Essex there.
Oh yeah,
the proposed Amazon distribution site that hasn't gotten off the ground yet.
But well, this is going to take us to the end of this one and probably into the next one. But go ahead. Go ahead.
There was a Vermont Digger story out where there's a local bookstore owner that organized the protest against Jeff Bezos and Amazon. Ironically enough, the book How to Resist Amazon is available on Amazon. So it was pictured in one of the pictures in the article.
Okay, gotcha.
So I found that pretty comical. But it comes down to that's more development in Chittenden County.
Okay,
it doesn't, which we would be an economic driver for that area,
right?
But it doesn't impact the rest of the state as much.
Well, the thing to think about is,
but you're bringing business in. You're bringing in some more tax revenue.
Yes, you are. You're bringing business in, and at this point, bringing people in. Affordability. Bring somebody who can afford to get a job here. Hopefully, buy a home here. Maybe raise some kids here, and wouldn't that be wonderful for the economy of Vermont? And wouldn't it be wonderful if we really want to increase our tax base, which is not the biggest thing for me, not increasing taxes, but just having...
You got to increase your population and you're dying.
Right. We're not...
You look at the demographics of the state are horrible.
Right.
It's top heavy on your 55 plus.
Yeah, we need to be looking toward... Yeah, we need to be... The goal of a million Vermonters needs, as citizens, as residents, needs to be out there. And that we need to be going toward this. We haven't... One of the other things, we haven't seen in the legislature any movement toward removing or moratoriums on any regulation at all. And how are we going to spark industry and building of homes and businesses? Without businesses, nobody's going to be drawn here to go to work. And nobody working, nobody's having kids, nobody's...
Well, the eastern portion of the state gets supported a lot from the Lebanon, Hanover area.
Okay.
You think
right,
about me.
Right. So I don't know. This is, unfortunately, we're working hard to try to get the problem solved and get people informed by listening to the radio show. But We're not going to solve it all in this segment or this hour, but we're running out of time for this segment, folks. Stay tuned. You're listening to Right Side Up.
All that you want, all that you see keeps on trying to swindle me. The devil won't find me down at the crossroads.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to Right Side Up. My name is Mike Tagliavere. My co-host this week is Dylan Maguire. We're talking about a little bit of everything, politics, and what's going on in your neighborhood, mostly in Vermont, but we're going to take a little bit of a turn in a minute. We want to talk a little bit more about the proposed Amazon distribution center that would have brought jobs and hopefully people who wanted to remain residents of this state and maybe raise a family and contribute to the tax base and keep our schools solvent and everything else. But apparently there are some people who don't like the idea of that. So I don't know where that's going to go. I know it was a huge facility. It was
107,000 square feet
it
is
was,
what their proposal is.
That was,
and it comes on the heels of Amazon in January deciding to close all of its Quebec warehouses.
oh, okay. So it would have brought a lot of business and income and.
Well, they wanted to close their Quebec warehouses because they want the workers there wanted to unionize.
Gotcha. Okay.
So they still need a presence in that region, which would give you
Right.
So on the one hand, if people in the northern part of Vermont, New York, New Hampshire get served from any of the warehouses in Quebec, are we paying now with these tariffs, and are we paying tariffs on the stuff that would be coming in? So you're whatever it costs to build in Vermont, which is going to be outrageous if the planning board decides to allow it.
Right.
You still got to go through an Act 250. You still got you're
right.
It'll be
Okay.
2 years for this breaks ground at best.
Right. Okay. Now, just keep in mind, because you mentioned tariffs, the tariffs that seem like they're going in place are reciprocal, meaning if there is a country tariffing our country, then we are acting in kind to tariff. So basically, if you're charging us this extra, then we're turning around and we are not the initiators of this. We are just responding in kind. So because there's a lot of hysteria out there pointing fingers at the president when all he's doing is trying to protect the United States, not trying to pick fights with everybody, which is how he's being portrayed.
Well,
so
you've got to understand history and look at it through the lens of the last 80 years in the post-World War II environment.
Yeah.
Where in I believe August of 44, there was the meeting in Brenton Woods, New Hampshire at the Mount Washington Resorts that set up this whole agreement because America had the economic and manufacturing base to be the world's manufacturer for a good 20-year run into the 60s, while everybody else was rebuilding from the war.
Mm-hmm.
And then after in the 70s, we started to see the rise of globalization, and we can save $1 in labor to ship it overseas and gut this community.
Right. Now, let me interrupt you for a second because you got a lot of stuff going on with this conversation, but I want to bring, we were just talking about education. How much of what you just stated do you think kids in the past 5 to 10 years got taught?
Oh, none of it.
None of it.
I didn't get taught it when I was in school.
So the reason I bring that up is I'm sure a lot of our listeners have heard the saying, if you don't learn from history, you will repeat it. So if we have spent 40 years or 30 years dumbing down our kids, then this is why we're stepping in this huge pile of manure, okay? Because we have kids who don't really know history. They don't know true history, and they don't know how to learn from it. How do you learn from something you don't know?
Well, you don't get taught through the lens of history because it's buried in a footnote because when the Bretton Woods meeting took place, it was in secret anyways.
Okay.
It wasn't.
But now we have the lens of history that we know about it. At the time, nobody knew about it. Right. But okay. But I'm just trying to point out, we don't have a lot of civics taught in schools, although it is making a comeback. We don't have a lot of history. World War II veterans are few and far between, even Korean War veterans. So there's no actual real life accounts of it, and the history is being stifled. So
Well, now you're having information more readily accessible.
Yeah,
And there's people that are independent that are out there that just if what they say is untrue, they will not continue to be in business because they lose their financial backing.
yes, and like you said, there's the information pipeline now with the internet and social media. There's so many ways to verify and fact check things that you, in a very short period of time, can verify whether somebody is putting something out there to scare you or if they're actually telling you the truth. So, the tool that the internet is a great tool for good and it's a great tool for bad. It's just a matter of how you use it to verify whether somebody told you a big fat lie or they told you the truth. So, but yeah, it would be nice. We brought up earlier, there's been no moratorium on regulation. We're not addressing any true Act 250 reform, and that needs to happen. That needs to happen if we want more jobs, if we want affordability, if we want more residents, if we want retirees to stay here. We need to have a thriving economy, and right now we're going in the wrong direction. Still.
I mean, yeah. What happens when the tourist industry dries up because you don't have So what are you going to?
Yeah.
How are you going to import enough workers to do this?
Right. If the tourist industry, all that we're going to have is the tourist industry and basically a service economy. That's not going to be a very prosperous economy, really. It's only going to make a very select few any kind of wealth. It's not going to grow your population base. It's not. It's just going to be a state that certain times of the year the population swells because of tourism, and that's it. So, yeah.
So diversity in what economic activity happens would be.
Well, and we as a state had that at one point in time. We had plenty of mills. We had machine shops. We had all kinds of things that had good paying jobs. We've destroyed our wood products industry, and if we want to be building Act 250 reform or moratoriums on some of that stuff to allow mills, lumber mills, not just sawmills that create rough sawn. I'm talking about dimensional lumber that builders and contractors want to build houses.
It's everything from your composite products, your
Yes.
laminate beams, your plywood.
Yeah, but that stuff, we have plywood manufactured in this state. I don't know if it's been on the decline or on the uptick. Hopefully it is, because like you brought up, if there are fears of tariffs, if we can make it here, I know we can. I don't know how much we're increasing.
It took 5 years for someone to buy that mill in J. Maine after they had their massive disaster.
Is it because of regulatory issues?
I think
Most likely.
I think it was that and money.
Okay.
It takes you're looking at a half $500 million investment. By the time if you have to transition from a paper mill to something else,
Yeah.
you got to put money into it.
Right. But I don't know if we're and we've talked about this before on the show. If we're so hell bent on farm to table with our food, growing our food locally, we should be growing our wood products.
But they're not even taking steps towards that. They're making it harder for the small farmer to do that.
I know. Well, we're talking.
So you're not gaining anything. You're putting more regulations in place, which make it easier for the large farms to absorb. But you're punishing the small farms that we all want to see maintained in the state. It makes zero sense.
Localized. Everybody says local. But what you're doing, you're right. We in the legislature are talking out of both sides of our mouths. We say we want this, but we're not acting to actually create an environment where what we say we want to grow is actually able to grow. We're not. And one of the big things that really annoys me is, oh, well, there'll be a subsidy and you can get this subsidy, other people's money, ladies and gentlemen. How about making an environment where people do not have the need for a subsidy, whether it be for a startup or to actually maintain their business for whatever reason?
Well, the money's drying up. We're seeing.
Well, yeah. At least for a short period of time, there's going to be a little bit of pain while this gets turned around. And I think the people who are willing to educate themselves realize that pain is going to be short-lived. There are some people who are trying to capitalize on the pain, trying to make people believe that it's going to be long-term. You and I think, agree. It's not going to be long-term.
No, but you have to continue to follow through with the plan. You can't just have these tariffs and then not do the tax cuts, not do the spending cuts, not do the regulatory cuts to try to increase growth.
But, the tariffs, somebody made mention a week or two ago about, the tariffs are going to drive the price of vehicles up. And I went in, I started dabbling with a little AI assistant. So I punched in on AI, I asked the AI the question about financing. How much does it cost to finance a new car, how much to finance a new car over 5 years? And it came out to about somewhere between $5,000 and $6,000 financing costs. And then I did it for a light truck, and the cost was somewhere between $7,000 and $16,000. And the reason I bring that up is because President Trump, on a social media post, said that they're looking to change that part of the financing to make it so that financing fee could be written off your income taxes. So it's not an extra charge. It's actually a discount. So he has taken the wind out of that fear mongering right there.
But then we got to have Congress to actually implement that policy.
Well, yeah, and we need people with the cojones to actually do it. But you're right. He can get the fire kindled. It's Congress once the fire is going, they need to run with it, and I hope they do. We're going to find out who really believes in jump-starting this American economy and really unleashing it, letting it grow, because it needs to grow. But I don't know. I don't know how you feel, but I really am to a point where I really we've been waiting long enough. We need to start seeing this stuff start taking off.
I mean, you think about how much money was just injected in the economy in 2020 and 2021.
Yeah.
It was we were headed for this road. It's not. I mean,
you're talking about like ARPA money or federal money that came to all the states.
Magic.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how you want to phrase it.
Yeah. It was just money for nothing. Yeah.
The printing presses went burr, as some people would say.
When the printing presses
money printer goes burr, just so fast.
Yeah. So, but yeah, we have the ability. Forget about the rest of the states. We have the ability, if we want to, jumpstart our own economy in this state by getting together with the governor and just trying to do a couple of the things that the governor will address, the things that the governor has talked about: affordability, public safety, education reform, education taxation, dealing with those. And healthcare. Healthcare is a mess. It's a total mess, and we can still fix it. But we are in a holding pattern, unfortunately, in Montpelier, because the majority still is. They've
powerful.
They've got their foot on the brake, slowly moving things instead of addressing the things that the voting public in this state said they wanted addressed. They said they wanted to address it. We made record gains. I mean, record across the country. We were the top, and look how look what the reaction is. The reaction is pretty tone deaf.
They only want bipartisan when they get their way.
Yeah, you're saying exactly what I was thinking. So, anyway, we're running up on another break, ladies and gentlemen. So, if you have the patience to stick with us for a couple of minutes, we will be returning. You're listening to Right Side Up.
Drink
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening. This is Right Side Up. You listen. Let me get this straight. You are listening to Right Side Up. My name is Mike Taglavia. My co-host is Dylan Maguire. Got too many things racing through my head. Before we get back into our discussion, I wanted to give you an idea of how many
How you can get a hold of us.
You have to reach us. Exactly. So, first, rightside.upradio@gmail.com if you'd like to drop us a note. If you, for some reason, are not able to listen to us on the radio, WNTK, go to WNTK.com, click on the podcast button, scroll down and find Right Side Up, and you'll see any number of our shows in the queue where you'll be able to listen to us. And by all means, if you like it, share it with a friend, because that's how we've been able to grow. You can also find us on Podbean. You can find us at 802 Scoop. You can find us on YouTube. Where else? You can find us on Granite Grok. So, like I keep saying, we are growing. Our network is growing, and we're very happy. Thank you very much to our listeners, because you're the ones that are helping us grow. So, we wanted to take a step in a different direction with this segment. And geoengineering is where we're going. H217 is a bill that's in the Vermont House right now. It's stuck on the wall. Unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, it does not look like it's going to come off the wall, although if you are listening and in Vermont and you'd like to see it come off the wall, by all means, go on vermont.gov, click on the legislature button. If you don't know who your legislator is, there's a way on the website that you can find out who your legislator is. Otherwise, click on the House Environment Committee and send an email to the House Environment Committee members. Or you can call the State House and speak with the Sergeant at Arms or someone who picks up the phone and send a polite message, leave them a polite message that you would like to see H217 taken up, because you are opposed to geoengineering and some of the, what is it called, stratospheric aerosol injection of some of the chemicals that we keep hearing about being sprayed into our atmosphere, into our breathing air. So there's a lot going on. And we are not the only state. I think there's 32 states that are either talking about this or already have legislation. New Hampshire had legislation last year that didn't go anywhere last year, but that doesn't mean it won't come back. And Florida currently has a bill trying to work its way through the legislature. And I think, Dylan, you have stuff on that.
Tennessee also had a bill.
Tennessee,
as well.
Exactly. Yes, you're right.
It was in Florida. It was Senate Bill 56.
Okay.
Okay. It says any person or corporation who conducts such geoengineering or weather modification would be subject to a third-degree felony charge with fines up to $100,000. If an aircraft operator or controller commits a third-degree felony, they can be subject to up to a $5,000 fine and up to 5 years in prison.
Okay, well, I mean,
that's got some teeth to it.
I was just going to use that same thing. If you want legislation to actually be preventative, it better have teeth. It better have teeth. So I'm glad about that. Let's see. Go ahead.
Quite a concept on all this, where I think there was hard to prove in some aspects.
I don't think it's going to be that hard to prove. Okay, and here's the reason I say that, because on X, on social media, there was someone who posted the mass spectrometer, some analysis of the chemicals. I think they were sent to this person on X who is has connections or is in the health industry. And, the amount of aluminum and cadmium and other toxic chemicals that actually came off of a piece of plastic sheet that was left out in someone's yard, that it settled. It's pretty amazing. Aluminum is one of those. Oh,
it's not
metals.
Just aluminum. I have some information from the interwebs.
Okay.
This is during the Vietnam War.
Okay.
The U.S. Air Force conducted Operation Popeye.
Yep.
to extend monsoon season
Okay.
to disrupt the supply lines on the Ho Chi Minh Trail.
Right.
So they would use silver iodine and lead iodine into clouds to stimulate precipitation.
Yes. Yes. And I don't know. I know aluminum is very dangerous. I know cadmium
Yeah,
is
lead,
dangerous.
so is lead. Yes.
Yeah. So is lead. But aluminum, I want to pick on that one first because aluminum has been associated or been shown to be a cause of Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's, things like that, brain disorders. So why would we, if it's not naturally occurring in the atmosphere, why do we not have it in this state classified as a pollutant if someone is actually putting it into our atmosphere? If we're worried about our soil, it's going to wind up in our soil. Do we want our food growing in that soil? I don't. I don't want to be breathing it either. So
It's always the test that man would like to be God and control the weather.
yeah. Well, and the sad part, the scary part is when you have people with that mentality controlling the levers of government, it's even scarier. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to bring this up. New Hampshire, the House bill from last year that went nowhere, it died in the legislature, was House Bill 1700-FN. And what it described was an act prohibiting the intentional release of polluting emissions, including cloud seeding, weather modification, excessive electromagnetic radio frequency. So maybe some of the things coming from these towers that are being proposed to be put up. Some people are saying that 5G radiation is not good for the human body. And microwave radiation, and making penalties for violation of such prohibition. I'm not sure if this has gotten any traction this session in New Hampshire, but I will bet you in the near future it's going to come back. And I think whatever the bill we have, H217 in Vermont, if it doesn't come off the bill this session, I think there's a good possibility that it might come off the wall and get discussed in committee next session. It kind of got a late start this session. So
You had a lot of new faces in there to get oriented.
Yeah, we have a lot of new faces, a lot of institutional knowledge that needs to be learned. With that knowledge, maybe we can find some ways to move these bills that some people in the public find very, very attractive to get enacted into law. And I think the anti-geoengineering bills all over the country, I think, they're going to make more and more momentum over the next couple of years.
So where I think we've ended up politically is one side. So the Republicans have been for the last almost 2 decades now.
Yeah.
Have to be very defensive of their positions and debate and have their facts on their side,
Right.
because we been looked at and painted a certain way.
Yeah.
While the Democrats have had more cover and more rope and forgiveness to massage some situations.
Massage, that's a good word. Yeah.
So
I would say manipulate better, but
I think as the media landscape changes,
yeah.
and you're not able to have the same cover. Look at that, because the younger generations aren't turning into cable news the same way that people 45 and 50 up are.
Right. Well, the advent of the smartphone, it's really bad in some respects, especially with young people, but it's really good in some respects because they know their way around a smartphone. And as soon as they find out venues to actually get news, to actually get the truth, and they start using them more and more, that's when this tool that could be harmful becomes very helpful and becomes a plus in the hands of younger generations. So I believe you're correct. It's going to be one of those things where the left used it to scare people, and now it's going to be turned against them.
We're in this is a very turbulent time of things.
Yeah.
Changing.
Yeah, I mean, you see more and more on social media how the climate
Alarmism.
climate change, the climate alarmism, the climate cultism is being disproven. It's being shown to be a scam to take control and to amass a lot of money for a very small sector of the population.
Well, what year did I forget what year? An Inconvenient Truth came out.
Oh boy, 25 years ago?
Probably. I mean, it
25
was big.
or 30
It was
years
big
ago.
when I was in middle school.
Okay. Yeah.
And every single person of my generation has watched that movie at least once,
and
if not more.
But everything out there's so much out there to dispel that right now.
I remember being in school and you had books on acid rain and we're gonna hit peak oil production in 2020 in 2012.
Right.
We're gonna run out of this.
Yeah.
You have to be a good steward of the resources that we're provided with.
Yeah.
That's where my stance is.
Right.
But you're not gonna these people that go out with the Just Stop Oil and block traffic or throw orange paint on priceless works of art.
Right.
What are you accomplishing?
I think
Wearing a polyester orange vest.
Yeah.
Made from petroleum products.
Right. I saw a picture of a young woman sitting on an airliner, leaning into the aisle, looking down the aisle. So full frontal view of the T-shirt she was wearing. It said "Just Stop Oil," while she's sitting on an airliner that burns jet fuel, petroleum products, so that they don't have any idea what they're doing.
No, it's a scare. It's been you think about it. Some of these people, especially the younger ones, have had. We're all gonna die in. I think what Greta Thunberg was. 12 years, and we're 6 years into that now, at least 6 or 7.
Is Greta going to send letters of apology to all the people she's scared to live in hell out of?
No.
I think not, because that's one of the things. They're so arrogant that they don't think people have memories to going to remember who scared the heck out of them and who was disproven.
It's been that's how they've controlled the narrative. It's through fear.
Well, the internet, I think is going to be helpful to disprove all of this, and it's not going to end well for the fearmongers. It's really not.
You have such a decentralization of information now.
Yeah,
where you're not hearing the same.
And that's a very good thing, the decentralization of the news. So it's a very good thing.
I'm optimistic, but it's just going to be a very painful time, I think.
Well, and when the other thing is accountability. When are the people who have contributed to the loss of so much wealth of people because of the fear that they spread? But whatever, you pick the topic. And how much we have lost in wealth and savings because of the fear-mongering. When are those people who've profited off of, and they're still trying to profit off of it, look at the clean heat standard. That's a control and a profit-based argument. That's what it is.
Well, they said the quiet part out loud. They said the quiet part out loud right around the same time it was the Global Warming Solutions Act was passed, where we've gone after all the industrial... we've hit our marks there. We have to go after the homeowner now, and that's what it's designed to do.
Yeah, to make it painful to buy something to keep that makes your life affordable and convenient.
But you're going to impact the small business because they won't be able to offer the same carbon credits as these larger
carbon credits, monopoly money turned into U.S. currency. That's what a carbon credit is. And when more people realize it, they will stop jumping on that sinking boat. That's what it is.
Favorite meme of if I pay more in taxes, the climate will get gooder.
Yeah, gooder. Yeah, it'll get gooder. That's a very good one, but you're right. Well, we're coming to the end of another show, ladies and gentlemen. We want to thank you very much for listening to Right Side Up. Please remember, stay safe. Stay informed. Listen to Right Side Up.
To the crossroads. Daddy always showed me